The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome. Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Thursday, November 16th, 2017. Thanks so much for joining me, man. I look like I'm in my pajamas, but I'm not. This is a decent sweater that I wore today, and it just looks crazy on camera. But anyway, that's besides the point. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can weigh in on the conversation, 857-600-0518, or you can leave us a message at, tweet us at Benjamin P. Dixon or at Progressive Army, or leave a comment in Twitter, wherever. You know how to reach us. And we want you to weigh in because that's what we're here for live. Man, it is crazy. Can I just start there? It is crazy. Crazy day. And I've got absolutely no problems saying that Al Franken needs to step down, because I don't think that Roy Moore should go to the Senate in the first place. Here's why. If you don't know what's going on, Al Franken is now on the list of dirtbags who have committed some form of sexual assault and sexual harassment. I'm sure by now you've read the article, so I don't have to go through it. But the only thing I want to point out from the article that makes me so definitively say I want him to step down is the feeling I got reading that article made me gag. The way she described how Al Franken, Democratic senator from Minnesota, grabbed her by the neck, forced his tongue down her throat, and how she felt that she had to go wash the taste of his mouth out of her mouth. That did it for me. The picture was, well, I was like, the picture is crazy. What is he doing? He's a picture of her. He's smiling and she's sleeping. He's got his hands on her breast. And I'm like, what is he doing? This is so ridiculous and disgusting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fill in the blanks. And then I turn around and read the article, and it actually made the picture worse. The article, the way she described it, made the picture worse. And then that's why I was like, I kind of knee-jerk believed her. I don't know. It's nothing. It has nothing to do with, me thinking that he's a dirtbag by default. I don't look at him and think that he's a pervert by default. It's just, I believe her. I'm sorry. I believe her. And one thing I noticed this morning was quite a few Democrats sounding like Republicans. We said it last week, and I've been saying it, man. I don't care where it comes, who does it, who's guilty of it. I don't care if it's Barack Obama, man. We cannot have special pleading where we make an exception because this person is on our team. This is the absolute worst place to be tribalistic. Absolute worst. And the more I don't think I talked about it much on this show, but when hashtag Me Too was, when damn near every woman in America was participating in Me Too, you started to get the scale and the scope of how many people have been either harassed or assaulted, just outright assaulted. And you start thinking about the scope and how far reaching it is. Then you start listening to your colleagues, and you start listening to their stories as they describe it. And then they hear other people describe their story, and it triggers the trauma back in their minds back to, and listen, I'm going to be honest. I live in such a privileged position because I've never had to hear these stories because, one or two things, right? Most women probably just never want to have to talk about it ever again. And as who was saying this? Somebody on Twitter. I should write down when I read something that is worthwhile noting. But somebody was advising the women two things in particular. Number one, Don't tell your story until you're ready to tell your story. Just because everybody else is telling their story right now doesn't mean that you have to live through that trauma again in order to tell people your story. And I get that. Totally get that. And then they were saying, be careful. Be careful on your timeline and be careful on social media as you read all these stories. And what brings it to mind is just listening to a colleague's reaction to the Al Franken story and how she told me that she felt the same exact way. When somebody did the same thing to her, how you have to get their taste out of your mouth. And that part alone right there is enough for me to be like, man, bye, Al Franken. Go. We can do better. And then you start thinking about the scale and scope of it. I'm coming full circle, the scale and scope of it. And you realize that it's very likely that every man in Congress, or at least the vast majority of them, have some skeleton in their closet that is just waiting to come out. And that's why we said last week, if you are an elected official or you're a leader of some type and you have this type of skeleton in your closet, just voluntarily resign. Proactively, preemptively resign. But that's wishful thinking. People are never going to voluntarily relinquish power. People are going to have to force them out. And that's a shame. That's a shame because it's only going to make your situation worse. And it's going to force women, more important than anything else, it's going to force women to have to relive the trauma that you caused them. And listen, the other thing that makes you do is to reevaluate every relationship that you've ever had, man. Like every dude. And yes, I know people are like, well, women do it too. Fine, women too, but realistically, let's just talk about the guy. Every guy in America at this point has to be going through their entire catalog of relationships and wondering at what point did they cross the line, if they ever crossed the line. I sure as hell have been going back through my catalog. And I don't have to tell you all of my stories, but I will tell you that it just blows me away that here's an advantage that I have, and it's called empathy, right? It really can be summed up with empathy, but it's also the fact that you don't get pleasure in my world. You don't get pleasure by taking something from a woman. You get pleasure by her just willingly give it to you. Like, this is what she wants to do. That's the entire point of like intimacy and even if it's I don't care if it's nothing romantic and you just having a one night stand with a woman, but it's the fact that she wanted to give it to you. Like, you are the lucky one that she picked out of the group of people that you all went out with, right? Hey, it was the exchange. It was the fact that here it is. It completely what type of sick, twisted person? I already know the answer. You already know the answer, but I have to beg the question. What type of sick, twisted person would take that from a woman or force it out of her and find pleasure in that? Unfortunately, we're finding out the answer. A whole lot of people, and I've been, my naive ass just been living in la la land, not thinking, it's not as though I was thinking it didn't happen, because you hear about it in the news quite often, but you don't realize the scale because of how many women simply just would rather not relive that trauma. It's terrifying. You have a better chance of finding a woman who has been assaulted or harassed. How can I phrase this? The odds are you're more likely to just, if you look at a group of women, it's more likely that every single one of them have been harassed or assaulted at some stage in their life. I mean, can you just think about that scale? And the disappointing thing again is simply this, that people actually want to justify it or explain it away or say it was Russia or say it was the picture was photoshopped and stuff and it was part of a skit. And don't do that, because you notwithstanding the fact that you make yourself look like a effing fool, but you also are just you're undermining it, you're undermining all of these women's stories. I mean, you're when somebody, what happens when somebody comes out and accuses another Republican, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we believe her, then nobody's going to take you seriously. And then that's going to undermine this entire opportunity in this tragedy. There is an opportunity in this collective tragedy that is all of the assaulted women in America who have been telling us this for all of these years. And some men believed them, most men didn't believe them, and the rest of them were actually doing it. Right? That's the thing. It's like, those of us who didn't know the scale and the scope and the magnitude of it, we may not have been doing it, but we were too busy, patting ourselves on the back for not being dicks, that we actually became dicks because we weren't hearing them when they said it was happening. And then the rest of the dudes out there, like, I mean, shit. I mean, what the hell is wrong? What the hell is wrong with us? God damn, what the hell is wrong with us? At what point in your sexual development, I know, again, we know the answers to these questions. I mean, it's an entire culture that we're bred into. We're trained. And I guess maybe the exception to the rule are people who can grow up in that same type of environment, but not internalize it to mean that I should take from women and rob women and just and don't get it twisted. Like, I have gone through the catalog of my past, and I have seen times where I was far more aggressive than I should have been, right? But then, some empathy and human decency kicked in and stopped, right? And I'm sure, here's the next question, I guess, is not only have women who have been assaulted and harassed, just outright assaulted and harassed, but how many women have had to just say no, like, or say, whatever, right? Even in a relationship. How many women have had to push back because they just didn't want it right then, or they didn't want it right there? They wanted, they wanted it on their own terms. And then you call it begging, I guess we have songs about it. Baby, 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 please, baby, baby. It's like, it's in every aspect of our culture. This is what America breeds. This is what humanity breeds because of how we've commoditized sex, particularly sex from women. So Al Franken, he apologized. Back to Al Franken. He apologized, and the apology was pretty robust. The victim has accepted his apology, and she says that she 100% believes him, fully believes him. I don't think that should preclude any penalties, right? It's important in this day. It's important right now. What's important is that we don't allow these stories to just become political fodder, number one, become a media frenzy, but that there are actual repercussions that instills fear in the heart. I mean, literally instill fear in the heart of predators so that they know if they try this, odds are more likely that they will be caught. And so stops them from doing it. That's the only good thing that I think can come from all of these people having to share their trauma, is that we fundamentally change our society where no the first time means no. No the first time means no. All right, 857-600-0518 if you want to weigh in on the discussion. What do you think should happen to Al Franken? Do you think he should resign? Some people are concerned about the political ramifications. Will that tilt the tilt the power of the, no, it's going to be fine. There's enough Democrats in power in Minnesota to make sure that a Democrat. So, we shouldn't have to consider that consideration. But realistically, there are people who 100% are viewing this through the eyes of politics and who's going to be the next senator if he steps down. All those things come into play. I honestly could care less. Couldn't care less because, again, I am appreciative of an opportunity to see an actual shift in culture where this is not acceptable, because as you grow up, you know, and this is not an excuse for somebody in their youth, right? But I think the older you get, no, I got to take that back. The older that I get, the more I appreciated and appreciate the real actual relationships, even if they were for one night relationships where it was a give and take, and this is what she wanted as much as I wanted. That should seem pretty standard. But now in my lateness, I know I'm late. I'm a little bit naive here, but understanding now that it really has not gone down like that on so many occasions for the vast majority of women. And so now we have a chance to correct that if we actually do something about it, if there are actual repercussions. If Roy Moore, check this out, if Roy Moore gets to the Senate and does not get put out of the Senate, then that is going to tell all the rest of the women who have never shared their stories, that's going to reaffirm the fact that men can get away with this. If Al Franken gets to stay in the Senate and nothing happens to him, then that's going to reaffirm to all the women who are holding their stories because of the trauma that it causes them, that they have to relive, that men can continue to get away with this. So we have an opportunity to actually do something fundamentally better in society, but it's also a chance for this to actually get even worse, where people who have been accused actually stay in power and face no real consequences, right? Like you go to counseling or you go to treatment like all the superstars do. Every time they do something wrong, oh yeah, I think it's time for me to go to treatment. Bitch, please, you need to go to jail. That's where you need to go. And so if there are no real repercussions for their actions here, then no, all of this opportunity for a culture shift becomes nothing, null and void, and we actually have made the situation worse. Because all the women who would share their stories and help hold people accountable will one, be reliving their trauma, but then number two, realize, America's not going to do anything about this. So that's why I don't care who they are, what party they're in. I don't care what part of, if they're on our team, quote unquote, our team, or if they're on the other person. I don't care. I think everyone in this season needs to be held accountable. And I think every one of us who whatever we have to go through our entire catalog of our past, we absolutely need to hold ourselves accountable. And more than anything else, realize that shit does not fly anymore. And you know what else doesn't fly? Us being quiet about it. No, let me start first. What doesn't fly is men and women who don't, but particularly men who don't listen to and believe women. Because listen, the odds are in the favor of them telling the truth. Let's just be real. Let's just do a numbers game. How many women are out here lying about this stuff? I don't know, but I guarantee you there are more women telling you the truth about this than there are lying. Guarantee you. Guarantee you. Will somebody get accused and it be a false accusation? It's a good possibility at this point. But you know what? There are going to be so many more men who get away with stuff. So many more men who get accused that actually did it and don't have any repercussions. So I'm not going to sit around and worry my head over the number of people who get falsely accused, because you know what? Hopefully the truth will pan itself out. Hopefully the truth will find its way to light. But there are going to be so many more instances of when women are telling the absolute truth. And for years, they've been saying it. And people like me have been like, I don't see it. I've never done it. Just because you haven't done it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. And so that's definitely something for me and a lot of other people who are like me who, you probably didn't rape anybody. Well, congratulations. You're not a rapist. But did you believe women when they told you it happened? Or did you believe them when they were giving commentary on how broad and how far-reaching the problem was in society? Or were you like, oh yeah, that catcalling stuff? This is definitely me. Catcalling. I mean, aren't you? Do you feel like you're exaggerating a little bit, maybe? Because I've never seen it, and I don't do it. So, and then you have to see it to believe it for yourself. All right, that's story number one. I'm gonna end. I'll probably reverse some things and talk about the Keystone pipeline now, because guess what? Who would have ever thought that this pipeline would leak some 200,000 gallons of oil in almost the exact area where the protesters were trying to stop them? Well, who would have ever thought that it probably would have been best for this pipeline not to pass through the water supply. Who would have ever thought that, I don't know, all the people who are out there in freezing temperatures being attacked by corporate security, being attacked by dogs, being sprayed with hosed down with fire hoses in the middle of winter, losing limbs, the people who put their lives and their freedom on the line, who've been trying to tell this to America for, I don't know, how it feels like at least 2 years now. A year and a half, at least 2 years. Maybe I'm lost on my timeline, but there have been enough people who said that this was going to happen, and lo and behold, wow, I just never saw that coming. President of the United States said that the first thing he would do when he got into office was to push the Keystone pipeline through, and that's what he did. Or he you know, with his rhetoric at least. And yet here we are, like nobody could see this coming. Shocked and awed, shocked and amazed that this happened. And we, you know, quite frankly, we probably won't really know the extent of it. Because like who's really, I mean, this is information that we're gathering from the oil company. They've made sure you can't get journalists in there. Maybe now within this, but I don't know. This to me it makes sense that they would crack down even harder to keep people out from reporting what's actually going on. I mean, unfortunately, there's not a lot to say about this, right? There's not a lot to say about this, but I told you so is not enough. The number of people who actually sacrificed, you know, their careers, their physical health, you know, their safety in order to let you know that this is going to happen, and yet we had to push it through. You know, this. I'm really saying the obvious. I'm like Captain Obvious tonight. But the insidious nature of capitalism in America will look your destruction in the face and say, hey, but we have to consider our profits. You know, we understand that this might, you know, completely destroy your ecosystem. And we understand that it might completely taint your water supply. But we got to think about the profits, guys. It will look you in the face and do the exact harm to you that the exact harm that you're trying to avoid. And the whole time they'll be telling you, hey, you know, what are we supposed to do? And our political system is not only inept in stopping it, but it is complicit in making it happen. Foot for foot, step by step, our political system has been complicit in making these projects that destroy our system, our environment. Very specifically here, the very thing that people were protesting is now exactly what happened. But, you know, it was too important to get that pipeline, to get the oil from Canada to wherever the hell it was going. I mean, what else is there to say about that? Because I told you so, they told you so, the protesters told you so, is almost irrelevant at this point because it has happened. And you know what? The next step is they're probably going to patch it up and keep going like nothing happened, and it's going to happen again. That's what's going on. That's the scary part, is that they don't really care that it happened. It's irrelevant to them that they were wrong because they knew that they were going to be wrong. They knew that this was going to happen because how many times does it happen every single day across the country? Oil leaks through pipelines. That's just a part of the doing business. So they knew that it was going to happen. They heard the complaints and were like, yeah, those motherfuckers are right. But you know what? We got to think about our profit margin. That's the crazy part. And now they've seen it happen. And you know what they're going to do? Keep moving like nothing happened. You know what our political system is going to do? Nothing. Not a damn thing. We need a new breed of politician, man. We need a we need a breed of politician that unfortunately, this is the type of politician we need. We need the type of politician who can literally take money from these fools and still go in and do the right thing. Because because everybody's not Bernie Sanders. Everybody's not going to be able to raise that kind of money on their own. We're actually going to need people who can get in there, take corporate money and stick it to corporate donors. I mean, it's quite literally the opposite of what Republicans did today. Republicans went ahead and passed the most draconian tax plan that we've ever seen almost in any of our lifetimes because their corporate donors said, if you don't, we're going to dry up your money. We need a breed of politician who will be like, okay, thank you. You've already got me into office. I think I can handle it from here. But there's like a paradox. There's a dilemma there because, and the dilemma exists because of money in politics. But then the dilemma also, there's two paradoxes that you have to be concerned with. Money in politics is going to take people who can take money to get in politics to change it. Right. And so you're constantly exposing the system to the same type of forces that made it screw up in the first place. And then the second, so literally to get into office, you're going to actually have to take money, and whether or not those people are magnanimous enough to actually ignore the demands of their corporate donors, absolutely no guarantee. Look how well it's working right now. But the second dilemma is that if they do that, if they do take their money, get into power, and then refuse to serve corporate donors, but are determined to serve the people, well, then that creates an opportunity for some other sucker who's going to be like, hey, I'll take your money, and I swear to God, I will do whatever the hell you want me to do, man. So for every opportunity that you make, I think Marcuse talks about this, like every step that you make towards changing the system, it creates an opportunity for someone else in the system to come and take advantage of the opportunity that you opened up by refusing to be a part of the system. We are quite literally trapped in the matrix. We're trapped in this cycle, this vicious cycle, the self-fulfilling feedback loop of capitalism that is running, monopolistic capitalism. I mean, I would argue that capitalism in itself always trends towards monopoly. But if you want to get specific in terms of like the actual definition, it's more we're living in a monopolistic capitalist society. And in that type of structure where it's literally ruled by a handful of people with the most wealth in the world, they're able to buy politicians. As soon as one politician doesn't do what they want, then that's the golden opportunity for some joker from nowhere to rise up in the ranks and seize his opportunity to be the important character in this stage, in this part of our American play. Right? They get to stand up and get some shine, and they take the money from the Koch brothers, or they take the money from whoever, and they fill in that gap. And so we're almost perpetually stuck in this system unless we get an entire set of people at one time. And this is like wishful thinking. This is literally wishful thinking. The only thing that can actually change the dynamics of a situation like the Keystone pipeline is if we get an entire swath of politicians to go in at one time and unanimously agree, or at least a majority agree, to get money out of politics so that we are not strangleheld by corporate interests. And what I just said to you is probably as unlikely as the proletariat revolution. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how, except for one thing, these opportunities for quantum leaps in our thinking. And I hope, and you ain't got to pray, but I hope and pray that what we're seeing culturally with sexual violence and sexual assault and sexual harassment, where we're at an opportunity here that represents a unique chance, a unique opportunity for us to quantum leap into the future in terms of our society. Whereas last week, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, this was just how it is. Boys will be boys. And like a month later, we're at the point where we're honestly saying, hell no, no more. And this is why we have to seize this opportunity and hold everyone accountable, because if we don't, we would have wasted the opportunity. And instead of making a quantum leap forward, we'll make a quantum leap back. And so the reason I bring that up in this context is that if we see an opportunity whenever it arises where the popular opinion, the public opinion, the court of public opinion is against something, and we can squeeze every bit of progress out of it possible, that's really the only opportunity that we have in this monopolistic capitalistic system, this monopoly capitalistic system. I think I said it right the first time. That's really the only opportunity that we have to actually change something, because if we're going to wait to try to work through the system to change the system is already designed well enough. It's perfected itself to insulate itself from change. You know what it is? If you ever watch Black Mirror, and the guy, I don't know anybody's name. I don't know any actor's name, so please forgive me. But the guy, the black guy who's in Get Out, the one who was crying and he was almost in the sunken place, he played on an episode of Black Mirror where he was trying to make enough money to help his girlfriend, or the girl that he liked, help her escape from the system, and the system ended up getting her anyway. And then in a fit of rage, he took to the airwaves and was broadcasting all across whatever the society was at that time, and he was holding a blade to his neck, willing to kill himself for the world to see how they were all trapped in the system and how the system would do you. And there he is, laying his heart. I mean, he's the perfect opposition. He's the perfect voice at the perfect moment to change the world around him. He's sitting there willing to die for what he believes, to spark the revolution. And the corporate masters, after he got done with his speech, you know what they did? They didn't get mad. They didn't call the cops. They didn't call security. They didn't kill him. You know what they did? They stood up and applauded him. And you know what they did next? They gave him his own goddamn show, where every night he sat there with a blade to his neck and talked about something passionately. I guess what the hell I do. The system is I'm a part of the system. You're a part of the system. Your outrage is part of the system. Everything. We're all trapped in this thing, and that's the bad news. The good news is that there are opportunities that come around very rarely and very significantly. There are opportunities that come around for us to say, damn the system, damn everything we know, forget about every aspect of what we believe in. This is our chance to change something. We're not there in terms of corporate money and politics. We're not there in terms of tax policy, none of that. The only place I see that we're actually there at a flashpoint where we can change something is with sexual assault and sexual harassment in our society, but it won't change. It actually will get worse if we do not hold people accountable. Well, all right. Last story of the night. This tax policy. I'm not really sure how to express to you how dark what the Republican Party is doing to America. I'm not pausing for dramatic effect, even though it is having a dramatic effect. The deductions that many of you may have enjoyed, I know I sure as hell was counting on the deduction for moving for work. I moved from Boston to Georgia. That deduction is gone as of 2018. I won't be able to file for that. Maybe I will be able to, I don't know if it's going to retroactively take place for 2017. I don't know. I didn't see that particular detail, but if anybody moves in 2018, that's gone. Being able to write off interest on your house up to a certain limit, it's gone now. It used to be $1 million. Now it's $500,000, which most of us in this conversation, whatever. The ability to write off your costs for graduate school, gone. All of this, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going off of memory, and it's like at least 12 different deductions that the average working class and middle class American actually could use, gone. 5 years from now. Middle class taxes from people who make between $40,000 and $75,000 a year, which is not really middle class, but that's what they call middle class. Your taxes go up. Not that I am really concerned about the deficit, because it's really about our debt to GDP ratio, but our deficits are going to be hit by $1.5 trillion, the cost of this legislation, the cost of this tax break. And it's going to kick in sequestration, which is going to take away at least $25 billion from Medicare, which leaves about $111 billion that has to be taken and found somewhere else because of the Pay-Go 2010 piece of legislation, pay as you go. I mean, gone. All these, everything that could help an average person move ahead, gone. Funding. This is not a part of the bill today, but this happened 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago. SNAP benefits reduced, literally taken in the budget, cut. Food for kids, hungry kids, the disabled, and the elderly, cut. So that the Republican Party can do the bidding. Literally, as Lindsey Graham said, their donors told them that if they don't push tax breaks through, they're never going to give money to them again. And so what do Republicans do? They bent right on over and stuck it to us, the working class and the middle class. And it's in this area that I shout the loudest that you cannot tell me that there's no such thing as a greater evil, because they are literally taking food out of the mouths of children in order to give tax breaks to the wealthiest people. And they do it with a straight face. I mean, Paul Ryan gets up there with his cornball ass and just says, like, today we did something good for the American people. You know, we're really here, and we're going to help the working class. He's literally saying he's going to help the middle class, when in their bill, everybody knows this is going to hurt the middle class and the working class. But he stands there looking you dead in your eye with this little Eddie Monster looking ass smile, smirking, saying we've done something great for the middle class. No, they haven't put funding back in for CHIP. Children's health insurance program lapsed. That didn't even lapse because they were trying to use that money for the wealthy. That lapsed because they were too busy trying to repeal Obamacare and kick people off of insurance, that they didn't have enough time to actually re-up the funding for CHIP. Not pausing for dramatic effect, but I want that shit to sink in, man. And here they are. These tax breaks, they don't have an expiration date like the George W. Bush tax breaks did. They're permanent. Which means Congress is going to have to proactively act in order to reverse what's being done. We can't just sit by and know that there's an expiration date. And because they're going to try to push us through the Senate on reconciliation, it's going to be in effect for a minimum of 10 years before anything can be done differently to it. It's not necessarily going to expire in 10 years because the House version says there's no expiration. But even if there was an expiration, it would have to be 10 years out. Guess when the tax is raised on the middle class? 5 years in. So 5 years of everybody thinking that everything is good except for people who can't deduct things on their, you know, they're not going to be able to deduct the expenses for moving across the goddamn country. Those of us that don't, we're going to be hit right away. Also that you could cut corporate taxes down from 35% to 20%. Also that you can flatten the tax code and break it down to 4 brackets instead of 7 brackets, because whoop-de-doo, that really makes all that really simplifies it. That's tax reform, guys. This is going to create such a huge hole in the federal budget that the next move after this is 100% to say, hey, guys, look at this deficit, guys. We've really got to do something about it. We need to cut Medicare. We need to cut Social Security. And now, speaking of Social Security, Donald Trump's next move is quote unquote welfare reform, because you know all these white people are against welfare. It is translated actually Social Security. He's coming after Social Security next. I think that's it. I've given you all the bad news. I don't even know if I have something positive. I do have one positive thing to say. Was that crunch on ice? Forgive me. I hope you didn't hear it in the microphone. The only positive thing that I have to say is the fact that the pendulum must swing back harder than ever and further to the left than it's ever gone before. You even got Matty Iglesias from Vox, who gets on my nerves, but he even made note of the fact that we can cut. We found $700 billion for the military, and now we've found $1.5 trillion that we're willing to write a deficit for in order to give tax breaks to the rich, but we're not willing to raise taxes a little bit in order to give Medicare for all. I'm like, what? Huh? Medicare for all? You guys ready for that over at Vox? You know? So the pendulum has to swing so far back. But here's the problem. You know what? We need you guys to run for office. I swear to God. Bottom line, we need you to run for office because we need, yes, Democrats in power, because you're not going to, I mean, maybe locally you can make it as a Green Party. I'm not going to knock the Green Party that bad. You could win a local commission, but I doubt that you can win a congressional district as a Green Party. So we need Democrats in power who would be as ruthless with doing the right thing as Republicans are doing the wrong thing. Okay? They are willing to, this bill it has only been out since November 2nd. The House bill is called Tax Breaks and Jobs Bill. Yeah, okay. It's only been out since November 2nd, 440 pages, not a single hearing on this bill. Not a single hearing. And here Democrats are, well, you know, guys, we have to be really cognizant of the rules of order here in the House and in the Senate, and it's very important for us to respect the rules of the institution, and we actually have to consider the Republican Party. So let's have 100 hearings and give them an opportunity to give all their amendments and muddy the water so goddamn much that you don't get anything. Like the public option is now gone. Right? We get hearings after hearings. They are willing to do the absolute worst thing for the worst reasons. And here Democrats are sitting around like, oh, no, we can't possibly do away with the filibuster and get Merrick Garland through. Philosopher Stone in the chat room said, it does not matter. Whoever wins the most money wins. Whoever has the most money wins. That's not always the case. But that's not always the case. I mean, shit. Look at Hillary Clinton. She had the most money. She didn't win. Okay? Okay. She had the most money and she did not win. That's not the case. But no. We need you all to win, to run, and we need you to win. And the good news is in Virginia, the House of Delegates. I guess I could check on the update right now as we speak, because it was hinging. The balance of power was hanging on 55 votes that were unsealed and hadn't been counted. And this is after I think they needed 16 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates for the Democrats to take power back. And they got 15, all just straight out. They got 15 during the election. Election last week. It's like dog years over here. Just give me a second to type that in. VA House of Delegates. Oh, thank you, Google, for reading my mind. You missed it. It's over. Okay, so I guess I could finish telling you the story anyway. So they were looking for, there were 55 ballots that hung in the balance in power. Absentee ballot. Okay, so let me read this real quick. The morning after the election day, the left control of the Virginia House of Delegates in doubt, the U.S. Postal Service delivered 55 absentee ballots to Stafford County Registered Greg Riddlemonster. Wow, Riddlemoser. The ballots which arrived, this is in the Washington Post, the ballots which arrived at 10 a.m. Are they really going to go through the entire description of what like the mailman was wearing? Like, just get to the point. I'm reading. Okay, bottom line. I'm not processing. I'm just reading. The bottom line is this. The race was so close in Virginia that 55 votes was potentially going to swing it. I'm going to fix my language so I can finish telling the narrative and go to bed. 55 votes was close enough for it to swing. And we often talk about like our vote doesn't count. And it seems like the most cliche thing in the world. But two things I know from the Virginia race. Number one, the most unlikely people who ran won, and they won against establishment people. They won against people with money. They didn't have any money over there. They were out there holding up paper signs, vote for me, you know, we'll legislate for food kind of shit, you know, and they won. They got out there unorganized and they won. You know why? Because they've seen and they've stared into the abyss and they've seen exactly how bad it can become. Here's the difference between you and establishment Democrats. Establishment Democrats see how bad things can become and they're comfortable staying right where we are, never realizing or never caring the fact that where we are is literally hanging on the precipice, looking over into the abyss. Like that's where we are. And they don't feel the urgency. They feel like this is a safe space because it's worked so well for them individually over the last few years. You and I, on the other hand, know damn well that the reason we have Donald Trump is because we've been comfortable on the precipice of destruction, what neoliberalism has done. And I'm not using neoliberalism here as a token attack, pejorative against Democrats. I'm saying it's a very specific economic system that is set up to benefit the upper middle class and the wealthy in a way that convinces us that all we have to do is work a little bit harder, right? That's the very basic. That's like a very minimalistic definition of a very rudimentary definition of neoliberalism. And the difference is that the Democrats are not the establishment Democrats, the people that some of you need to run against. They're not going to critique the economic system. They're not going to go much further than talking about Medicare for all, because they think all that has to be done is if we just get the crazy Republicans out of power, then everything will be fine. Not knowing that you can get them out of power, but they'll be back, bitch, in about 8 years. And then they're going to go harder, further, and even crazier than before. And so there is merit to what people on the far left who are saying that, you know, the answer for fascism is socialism, right? There are merits there. But we are finally at the place where we can actually discuss socialism publicly, democratic socialism, winning offices. And so whereas it is going to be better for American society for us to stop staring into, or like literally falling into the abyss of Donald Trump and the Republicans who are they're not satisfied with the dystopia that we currently live in. They want it to be the Gilded Age over and again, even though we've already crossed the threshold of the level of inequality that existed in the Gilded Age. The Republicans are like, that's not enough. The Republicans are like, they literally want to get rid of every safety net, everything that was ever done during the New Deal. That is their fucking goal. And you know what? I'm sorry. It is better for us to stand on the edge of the abyss than to jump headlong into it with the Republican Party. But we don't even have to stop there. We don't have to be satisfied there, because there's a new wave of Democrats, of progressives, of people who think and are willing to fight and willing to hold to their principles and willing to do something big for the people. And you know what? It's not enough for us to sit here. God damn it, I'm gonna run for office. I'm gonna run for office, god damn it. You know, it's not enough for us to sit here and just talk about it anymore. We need people, we need you in power. We need you to get out there and run and win your city commission first, because once you win that, it's smooth sailing from there. You build the relationships from there. You're going to have to take some money, because the only question is the money going to corrupt you? And if you're listening to me on a regular basis, and if you're here because you probably shout more at me to be more progressive than I'm shouting at you, chances are you won't let the money corrupt you. Now, if you make me out to be a liar, then cops are going to have to come get me, because I'm coming after you. But the point remains is I would trust the future of America in the hands of people like you, who are both principled but also rational, and who actually want to operate in the system to make the system better. I would trust the future of America in the hands of people like you more than I would Democrats who are perfectly comfortable. Just, you know, it's like a tornado has just landed our house on the edge of a cliff, and the Democrats are looking around like, yeah, this is fine. This is not bad. Meanwhile, you got the trolls, you got the gremlin dudes in the White House and in the Congress who are like, no, we don't want the edge of the abyss. We want to leap into the darkness. And then the rest of us who know better, we're sitting on YouTube at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, talking about what we should be doing and not quite doing anything yet. So I'm going to put a challenge out to every person listening to me now. At least Google and find out what local race you could qualify for. Doesn't mean you're going to sign up for it, but Google it and then make a plan in your head of how you can actually do it. Now, out of the, I don't know, about 2,000 people who download, listen, and watch. It's about 3,000 who download, listen, and then watch on YouTube. Out of that, if we only have 3 people in our audience who actually do it and actually win, then I would have done my job. All right, everybody. It's late. I will see you on Monday. I will see you Monday, and I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted as to whether or not we're going to go to a morning show at the top of December. YouTube, I don't know if you guys got the message, or you all, but I would like to start a morning show instead of the evening show. It would help me be a lot more consistent. It would be at 9 a.m. Eastern time starting in December. I really want to know what you think about that, so I'm going to keep the chat open for a minute so we can discuss that. Everyone else, we will see you Monday.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
It's Ben Dixon.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.